Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Brendan Glasheen in the host chair today, joined by Sean Zerillo, BJ Cunningham. Monday best bets, full slate today in baseball. Got Marathon Monday in Boston, Patriots Day, Marathon Monday. Maybe we will hit on it at the end of the show, but we won't feature Red Sox and Guardians. They get the slate started at 11 o'clock. On this Monday. So kind of a unique Monday slate. And there are day games from time to time on Mondays. But point being is we're here every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday morning during the season. So if you need to make us part of your regular calendar, those are the dates we are here in the morning. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen and find us on the Action Network YouTube channel as well if the video version is a better fit for you. 5-star ratings and reviews, whatever you have to say. We appreciate the feedback as we get into the thick of the season. 15-game slate, as I mentioned, the Marathon Monday game this morning. Sean Zerillo, the author of the opening pitch write-up over at Action Network app. He's got that article up all week through Thursday. All right, Sean, what are you coming off a good Sunday for you? What are you looking at for today with a bunch of new series starting up on a full slate?
Going to start with the Mets in both halves, up to about minus 126, either first 5 innings or full game. They have been horrible defensively per defensive runs saved this year, but watching them, I think there's massive improvements. Brett Baty looks so much more confident defensively at third base. And Francisco Alvarez is becoming one of the best pitch framers behind the plate in all of baseball. He's a cannon for an arm, hasn't thrown out many base stealers, but he steals strikes constantly. And looking at called strike stolen over the past couple of years, he ranks among the league leaders. He ranks among the league leaders also in terms of pitch framing by StatCast, but also called strike stolen by Sports Info Solutions. So both metrics agree. He's great at stealing strikes for his pitchers. I see opposing fan bases tweeting during Mets games, Francisco Alvarez needs to stop with this nonsense of the flooding the glove in and out of the zone. I mean, he's very aggressive in terms of his glove movement, but because it's always in motion, it's kind of difficult for the umpires to see where exactly the ball is being caught. So Alvarez has been great behind the dish. As I said, the Mets metrics defensively are not great, but they do project as a decent team defensively on paper. Getting Harrison Bader in center field, Tyrone Taylor in center field, and then pushing Nimmo and Starling Marte to the corners should just make them a better defensive outfield. Baty improved at third base. Lindor is a Gold Glover. Alonso has actually been underrated defensively at first base. And now Alvarez's ranking is one of the better defensive catchers. So I actually see a much better defensive team on paper than how they performed to date. And I think they'll get better at that going forward, considering it's always been a point of emphasis for David Stearns with his teams with the Brewers. So that was how they envisioned improving this team this year, was on the defensive end of things. I definitely see the potential for that to happen. But also, I just think these teams are over and undervalued, respectively, given how they've started. The Mets under 500. They were projected to win about 10 more games, as many as 10 more games, probably as few as 5 more than the Pirates this season. So they were a better team on paper in a more difficult division. They have the slightly better bullpen. They have a slightly better offense. And these two starting pitchers, to me, are relatively the same. But Adrian Houser's Stuff Plus rating has come up relative to where it was last year. Martin Perez is basically the same at a 72 Stuff Plus, good command, but probably projects for a mid-4s ERA. And that's roughly where I project Adrian Houser too. But I just think he has more upside given the fact that that Stuff Plus rating has moved closer to 100. So I make the Mets closer to minus 135, both first 5 innings and full game. I do think they're undervalued just because of the slow start. I think the Pirates are getting a little bit extra support given their hot start. And I think the Pirates, the Royals, I think these teams are going to continue to play well. But ultimately, I do think their projections, their preseason projections were fairly accurate. And you still have to expect some regression back to that sub 500 level at some point. So Mets minus 126, either half, like them today. And I've been betting on them relatively successfully over the past week. So hopefully that continues.
Is that I'm actually glad you brought that up because we hit on Jim Turvey and Tanner did Friday's show, and we discussed the Central and how open it is. And we discussed, Dabundo made this point last week. I'm stealing all of their takes and making it into one thought here. Dabundo had a great point about are teams willing to give up pitching at the deadline, whether they're good or bad, right? Just like good young pitching, because we've hit on the clock, but more so just like building out. We need more data as we've hit on, but getting establishing a staff for years to come. I'm curious. Are you almost in a way happy, like as a bettor? And BJ, you can weigh in on this too. Like, oh, great, perfect. Pirates I like them maybe for a future that I have in September, but they got off to such a good start. Now I'm going to get some better prices from an over marketing standpoint. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you evaluate whether that's legit or not? And if they play a team that, like the Mets, so you're clearly back in the Mets tonight. I'm curious to try to give the audience an understanding. Like, yeah, there are certain moments where you should fade a team that's off to a good start, but maybe moments you shouldn't do that.
So, I mean, it's all price dependent for me
night-to-night basis,
anyway,
I realize
but
that.
when the intuitive like fact that both teams have started in very opposite to what they were projected to do, or off from what they were projected to do, but I'm getting, it's just like breaking down the analysis of like, why is this line closer to even when the Mets were supposed to be the better team on paper coming into the year? They're at home, nobody's hurt. So like, why is this line to me minus 115 when minus 135 is, I've been doing this long enough where like I can almost predict what the line should be, I feel like, before I see it. But it's still a magic trick to me every day once I load stuff in the model and then see where the edges are relative to the market. Because I'm always afraid I'm going to wake up one day and like all 15 games are going to show value. And that's obviously not what I want. I only want like a few games popping off relative to all the other edges. So no, it's just one of those intuitive things in terms of like both teams have started not really where you've expected to. The Pirates have been red hot. They've also gotten some very fortunate bullpen luck. I mean, David Benner blew up once and blew a win for them too. So, but the defensive thing I think is really the biggest thing that stands out to me, because I watch the Mets basically every day and I see why this team should be a quality defensive club. And then I went on Sports Info Solutions last night and saw they're ranked 30th in defensive runs saved. And I'm like, I worked for that company. I know how those numbers are made. I'm very surprised to see that they're ranking so poorly in that, considering I've watched all these games. So I actually think there's substantial improvement that you could bake in that. But also, like, we just have such a sufficient sample on what Martin Perez is, right? It's way different if I'm handicapping a pitcher like Jared Jones on the Pirates, right? It's way different if you're handicapping a pitcher like Jared Jones, his projections for the season were honestly in a similar range as Martin Perez, like 4.5, high fours. But his StatCast or his pitch modeling ERA thus far is like under 2. So what do you use for a Jared Jones? And considering pitchers influence like 75% of the line on a daily basis, using or figuring out which pitcher projection to use is so incredibly crucial. So how aggressive am I projecting Jared Jones? Am I baking in 1/3 of his sample to date? Am I baking in half? Am I using the whole thing? No, so it's very much like a day by day thing for me. And it really just comes down so much to the starting pitchers, where when the starting pitchers are even and I see an advantage for a team everywhere else, plus the fact that they're at home, it's like, okay, it should be at least minus 130. So it's always a case-by-case basis for me, daily basis for me, but also it's just, I have to spend a lot of time, and I'm sure BJ does too, figuring out what do I want to use for the pitcher? Like, what is his true talent right now? The projections say one thing. Martin Perez has a super sufficient sample. His projections also fall within that range of like his career rates. So we know what he is, but a guy like Jared Jones, who we'll probably talk about in the coming days, much more difficult to project, but I've been pretty aggressive with him, and I've been pretty aggressive with other guys who have impressed me visually, like Spencer Turnbull. And so far it's worked out, but as we get deeper into the season, you have to keep like isolating, recent starts and seeing, not how they've done over the whole season in terms of their stuff loss and things like that, but how they've done in their past 2 or 3 starts. Because that stuff goes up and down over the course of the season. Guys get banged up, guys' elbows start hurting a little bit, start barking, and their velocity may not be the same. Aaron Nola, we could talk about today, but his velocity is down. So there's just so much nuance, or so much minutia I have to look at in terms of the stuff plus movements and the velocity movements, and making sure all of those align relative to what my opinions are, but also what the projection market is for these guys.
Okay. It's good stuff. I just think people, I'm speaking for people. I just think early in the year, you see, look at the Pirates. They're a darling, 11-5. Brewers, they've had historical success, 10-4. I think you answered, what you said is, I think, a good reminder to the audience.
Take a look at those preseason projections, because they weren't wrong. Like, they're probably still gonna, what these teams should regress to. But the Pirates, keep in mind, they have Paul Skeens sitting there. They have Quinn Priester sitting there, right? Other teams aren't going to get pitching, as you said. It's going to be difficult to trade for pitching this year. But if you have pitching in the high minors that's ready to come up, you're going to be able to sustain for longer. So they're they're trying to keep the workload off of Skeens right now. They want to manage his workload. He was a candidate to come up and replace Marco Gonzalez. The Pirates said no. They want to manage his workload. He hasn't really thrown more than 55 pitches in the minors. So they're trying to stretch his arm out, but they also don't really want him to go over 120, 140 innings professionally this season. So if you bring him up now, then you're going to have to sit him down at some point. They're just trying to manage his workload so that hopefully if they are competitive in August, September, he's actually pitching meaningful innings for them at the major league level.
Hey, BJ, sorry to keep you waiting.
That's okay.
Coming off a weekend, a lot of stuff happened over the weekend.
That was an interesting discussion.
How are you? And what do you got for a best bet today?
I'm good. And speaking of Aaron Nola, I like the Rockies and Phillies over 8.5. Let's start with Aaron Nola. Like Sean said, his velocity is down close to 2 miles per hour on his fastball and across the board in all his off-speed pitches. And the stuff plus numbers have completely cratered outside of his knuckle curve. And, that is definitely concerning. And if you've seen his strikeout rate go way down, his walk rate go way up. So now he's facing a Colorado lineup that, coming into the season wasn't that great, but they've hit the ball pretty well so far through the first 2 weeks. 7th in weighted on base average. They have a couple bats in that lineup that can really give Nola some problems, but Nola will be going up against our old buddy Cal Quantrill, who has just not been good so far in Colorado. It just hasn't really worked out. ERA over 7, given up 4 homers already, 2 in his first home start in Colorado, and like usual, he's generating an incredibly low amount of swings and misses. And he is somebody that historically, if you listen to this podcast, he has overperformed his expected metrics. And then last year, it caught up with him. He had an ERA around 5, and his expected ERA was up at 5.85. And again, he's somebody who just cannot generate swings and misses. And if you're going up against a Phillies lineup that can definitely put the ball in play, that's a troublesome spot. And what's even more troublesome for Quantrill is that he is somebody that, given his pitch arsenal, he should be generating a 50% plus ground ball rate. He has a sinker, a split finger, which the split finger has actually been pretty good this season. It's got his stuff plus numbers up to something, at least somewhat respectable as opposed to last season. But he also throws a changeup in there, and then he has a cutter. Like, all those pitches should be down in the zone. And since he can't generate swings and misses, he should be around a 50% ground ball rate guy, but he's only around 40%. And that's the biggest concerning thing here. So I projected 9.6 runs for this game. The weather should be beautiful in Philadelphia tonight, about 75 degrees, not much wind. So I go over 8.5 and Phillies and Rockies.
I kind of like the Rockies a little bit. I think I want plus 230 or better. I might wait for a live bet, like we did with Quantrill in his last start in Colorado. But I also like Quantrill not in Colorado. I prefer him in other parks. It's like pitching in Philly where he's more likely to give up home runs is kind of better for him than it is pitching in Colorado where he's likely to give up 12 singles in front of him. So, I like the Rockies a little bit. I'm not sure where you have it projected, BJ. I have it at plus 210. So plus 230 or better would be a bet for me, and it'll probably get there before game time.
Yeah, I'm at, I believe I was at around minus 250. So I'm just going to pass.
Wait for a live play, definitely.
Yep.
Once those bullpens come into play. But Rockies probably the side.
The Rockies live play angle has been captivating here.
Yeah, the starters are so bad.
Yeah.
Want nothing to do with Dakota Hudson, and Ryan Feltner's been okay, but Cal Quantrill, like these are some of our favorite fade candidates from the past few seasons, and the Rockies have give them all.
They stuck them in the worst run environment possible.
All they need is Corbin and Dallas Keuchel, and we're good to go.
Oh my gosh!
It's like the Savannah Bananas. They're just entertainment purposes for us. Okay, let's move on. Let's find out if we're going to fade the public today. So we're going to take a look at Giants Marlins. 78% of the bets, 95% of the cash on the Giants. Giants over Marlins today. Miami 3-13 start. Kyle Harrison on the mound for the Giants. Edward Cabrera for the Fish. Sean Zerillo, do we see value in going to the Fish here to get their 4th win of the season?
No, so this line's about right to me now. AJ Puck was slated to start this game last night. They scratched him for Edward Cabrera today. Cabrera did stretch his arm out in the minors. It's not like he's just coming off of, like Blake Snell was, minor league exhibition starts or simulated games. And Snell hasn't looked particularly great, nor has his arm been stretched out. But Cabrera should be closer to, I'd say 80%, 85% of his pitch count, what you'd expect normally. I am a little bit worried about the bullpens here. And I bet the under 8.5 yesterday, assuming Puck was starting, not assuming Edward Cabrera was starting. So even money, I take under 8.5. I'm actually going to look probably, though, for a live bet, a live over as this game gets going. If I can get over 6.5, over 7, and then try to get that middle on 7 and 8 below the 8.5, I'd be fine with that. Because I don't think the Marlins bullpen, one, it just keeps blowing up, like regardless of how well you project those relievers. You know, Tanner Scott, Anthony Bender, they project so much better than how they pitched, but they used a bunch of them recently. So if Cabrera doesn't get through the 4th inning here, you're very likely to get Brian Honig or Birch Smith, who are their long relievers who project for like high 4s, low 5s ERAs coming in to eat up those innings. And that's not what I want in terms of keeping this game under. So I like Kyle Harrison a lot. And in parks, I've talked about it recently, but in parks where it's difficult to hit home runs, Kyle Harrison is going to be really effective because he gives up a lot of fly balls. He throws a lot of 4-seam fastballs and just challenges hitters up in the zone. CJ Abrams hit one into the water against them in Oracle Park because he was sitting on the fastball. Like, guys who do not have huge power can absolutely turn around the fastball on them if they time it, but it's so high up in the zone and he gets it above the hand so consistently, it is hard to turn the pitch around on him. Keep an eye too, if he gets shelled tonight, it's because he's tipping pitches. And I saw some evidence potentially in his last start that he may have been tipping pitches. So keep an eye on that for Harrison. If the Marlins start out hot offensively, I may even lay the run line on the Marlins live just because they're likely to blow him out. But Edward Carrera walks the ballpark sometimes. He's very frustrating to bet unders with because he will walk the bases loaded and then try to pitch out of the jam and get a strikeout and a ground ball. So the under was the bet for me last night. I still like it at even money. -103 is probably my upper end of price target today, but live over probably to get out of that. I don't want to, scrap the bet completely. I don't want to buy out of it and even lose percentages of the unit there. I'll just look for a live play to try to middle it.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I want to make sure you keep an eye out there. The Puck is not the starting pitcher tonight for the Marlins. And the Giants are still favorites with Cabrera pitching, as far as I can tell, at BetMGM. BJ, with the pitching change, no Puck, do you want to come back in on the Marlins? Are you staying away? What's the angle here for Marlins Giants?
Yeah, I'm just gonna pass. Edward Cabrera, his couple starts here in AAA, he's posted a good ERA, but if you look at the XFIX numbers, he's up around 5. So a little bit interesting. Like Sean said, he can walk the bases loaded at any time. But I projected the Marlins at -107. So this is right around where the market is for me. So I'm going to pass. The Marlins lineup has been terrible to begin the season. They have underperformed comparatively from when they're the weighted on base averages to where their expected weighted on base averages. So there should be some positive regression coming at some point for the Marlins. But as a lineup that projected pretty average against left-handed pitching last year, not really the spot I want to back them.
They'll get hot at some point, though. Like every year, there's
will.
a team who starts out terribly like this. It was the Reds 2 years ago or last, every year there's a team who starts out and falls flat on their face. And then you find like a 6-week stretch where they're profitable in May and June and nobody pays attention or nobody notices because of how bad they started. So yeah, just wait for the Marlins to get hot. It'll happen at some point. We'll make some money on them.
Yep. Jake Berger might be a guy to target in some prop markets for hits because he's the lefty killer. So.
See, that's an example of what I was trying to get at the beginning of the show. A team that started slow, like the Marlins, that the regression should come back on the other side of things.
Yeah, but I don't think the market, like, I haven't actually been betting against the Marlins a lot. I bet against them yesterday because I think Luzardo is like a little banged up and his velo's down, and there was just value on the Braves for the first 5 innings. But it's not a team I've like been consistently betting on, which is great because I haven't lost money on them. But also just, I don't think the market has sort of like overreacted to this poor start.
Okay.
And made them overinflated on a daily basis. I do think it's happened with the Mets, but yeah, not as much as Marlins.
Got it. Okay. Very good. So that's an example where you just, right. I hear you.
And Brandon, one thing I'll point out on that is that you have to think about what the job of the sports book is, right? They're trying to get even action on both sides, right? So if a team has a hot start, what's the public perception of that? We need to kind of inflate this because we're going to get too much money if we just keep the teams around where their preseason projection was, right? So there's always, one thing I like to tell people is like, people say, oh, the sports books don't know. Like they know, like they're just trying to get even action on both sides, right? So
not always even action, but like sometimes they do take positions on games.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get the money where they want it to go.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the
point.
point.
They're trying to bait the money to whatever side they want it to be. And yeah, they haven't been baiting it towards the Marlins, in my opinion.
See, I think the minutia is why we're here.
Yeah.
On some days for a long season, we do 3 shows a week. I mean, look, there are some weeks where you guys, or some days during the week where the card's not great. So just dive into some other.
We don't get 15 games on Monday very often either. I mean,
No, we don't.
There's just a lot of games today. It's not like I have a substantial number of bets, but we also don't always get full slates on Monday. So
that struck me too. I'm like, what the hell? It's Monday. Why are there so many games?
Listen, as somebody who has to write these games up on Sunday night, I was not looking forward to seeing 15 games on Monday. I was hoping it was 8, but it is what it is, and we find the value where it lies.
Here we are, and you got here. You got here for the show, and we're doing it. So, all right, let's do underdogs. You hit on the Rockies already as a team, maybe live, but Zerillo, of these other 14 games, any underdogs that jump out to you?
Yeah, I'll play the Rocks small pregame if we get plus 230, probably like a quarter unit there. The A's though, the other team that I'm keeping an eye on, if I get plus 155 or better, Sonny Gray looked good in his first start, but the A's are playing well, and I didn't realize until it was happening how important the A's National Series was for my preseason win totals. That was very crucial head-to-head there that the A's ended up taking 2 out of 3 of. So really nice win there for the A's over the weekend. I didn't have any bets directly on those games, but had full rooting interest for Oakland to take those down. And yeah, they're playing much better this season. The crowd clearly is not impacting them. They're not playing like a depressed team who's about to move to Sacramento. Maybe, these guys might be motivated to keep their major league jobs, right? But yeah, I projected this line closer to plus 140. Stripling is fine. Their bullpen's fine. Like, there's not a ton I can say about this game. Just plus 155 or better. Oakland's in range, and they're just playing like not nearly as bad as they were last year. That's the best I could say. They played it like a 55, 57 win pace over the final 4 months of last season. They started out horribly, but then they got back to close to where they were supposed to play. So that's the example. It was the Reds 2 years ago. It was the A's last year. And we kept saying at some point they're going to win some game, and they did. Just nobody noticed because it was in the middle of the season after they had already fell on their face to start the year. So yeah, the A's playing fine, and I expect them to keep playing at about a similar pace.
BJ, underdog for today.
Twins first 5 plus 125 would not play full game because the Twins bullpen is completely worked right now after playing a doubleheader on Saturday and then having to use their top three of their top 4 arms on Sunday against the Tigers. But Louis Varland is, let's just say he's had a very interesting start to the season. A couple starts. He hasn't been that good in terms of his expected metrics, but he has faced both the Brewers and the Dodgers, who are 2 of the best 3 lineups so far in baseball. There has been some encouraging things. Velocity is up on his fastball. He's throwing it a little more often. He's inducing a lot of ground balls, which is also very encouraging. He's switched his sweeper to a curveball, and he's generating a much higher number of whiffs on that, which is also an encouraging sign. The problem always has been with him is just he has very little control over his arsenal. He's walked too many batters through his first 2 starts, which really wasn't an issue last year. So I expect him not to, walk as many guys at the high rate that he did. But he'll be taking on Cole Irvin, who has been terrible as a starting pitcher when he's been in Baltimore. Last season, he made 12 starts out of the bullpen and 12 starts in the starting rotation. The 12 starts and 12 appearances out of the bullpen were actually halfway decent. Like, he had a 3.77 xFIP. He was generating a good high number of ground balls, over 50%. Good strikeout rate was, he's a soft tossing lefty, so he was pretty decent out of the bullpen in good situations. Then he goes to the starting rotation, and those 12 appearances, his xFIP climbs up to 4.77, and his strikeout rate goes down, and it's just a case of a guy who's better in the bullpen than he is in the starting rotation. So I don't think Varland should be an underdog here against the Orioles. I know the Orioles project out to be a little bit better of a lineup than the Twins, but I think Varland's the superior pitcher here. So I like the Twins for the first 5 at plus 125.
Okay, very good. A couple more from the guys, and then we'll wrap it up, because I think, like BJ, I want to watch the Red Sox at 11 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
So final bets for Sean's Red Sox Guardians, 11 o'clock, Marathon Monday, 11 a.m. start time. A tradition like no other. Final bets, Sean Zerillo.
I wanted to bet the over the Patriots the game and or the Marathon Monday game, and it steamed up right before I was able to get it. I guess lineups came up right as I was looking at lines this morning. I saw some first 5 over 4.5, full game over 9s. Those got to 4 and 5. 4 5, actually 5. Even some 5.5s now for the first 5 innings, and 9.5 for the full game. So a juiced 4.5 I put in a parlay with the Dodgers in the first 5 innings. The Dodgers at 5, I made closer to minus 400. There were some minus 320s, minus 300s out there. Tyler Glasnow looks phenomenal this season. It was supposed to be Yohan Adon originally. They replaced him with a young arm. I'm blanking on the name right now, but projects in a pretty similar range to Adon. And the Dodgers, for me, project better against lefties than righties, which is a little bit odd considering Muncy and Freeman and Outman and Ohtani and all the guys they have. But it actually upgraded the Dodgers projection for me. So made that closer to minus 400. Finally laying Dodgers first 5 up to about minus 360. I know it's pretty wild. Don't have to bet it big, but definitely think Dodgers first 5 should find a way onto your card. The Rays, my other best bet for today, along with the Mets, but the price has just moved closer to where I would project it. I think Zach Eflin has started out a little bit rough, but the numbers, indicators all remain in line with where he was last season. And I think he's going to be somebody who continues to outperform his preseason projections just because he turned into a different pitcher last year since moving to Tampa. They optimized his pitch mix. They brought him to a new level. His command remains elite, and I think he's going to get back to that level. And speaking of elite command, George Kirby for the Mariners also started out a little bit rough, just been very unlucky. He has a 380 batting average on balls in play, 311 career. You look at the hard hit rate, like he's just been unlucky. The Guardians got him for a bunch of hits that just sort of blooped in over the infield. The sequencing luck has been unfortunate, but George Kirby still projects as one of the best pitchers in all of baseball this season. So the Mariners first 5 up to minus 155. The Rays first 5 to minus 175. Full game to minus 165. All bets for me. And unfortunately, the under has moved out of range, but I do like the way Frankie Montas has thrown the ball this season too. He seems like he's back to his pre-injury levels. So I do like the under in Seattle, but I needed minus 105 or better, and I think it's moved to minus 120. But surprising that, I've upgraded Montas, and I still like the Mariners in the first 5 innings. That should say a lot.
All right. BJ, final plays before we go.
Yep. Angels Rays over 8 -1. There's -115s out there right now. Like Sean said with Eflin, he's been a little bit unlucky to start the season. ERA over 6, but expected ERA around 4. Patrick Sandoval has been kind of in the similar vein, but with Sandoval, he's really struggling to control his arsenal. He's getting a high number of strikeouts, but a high number of walks as well. With a patient lineup like the Rays, it's not a very good scenario. So projected that closer to 9. So a little bit of value on the over there. And then over 4.5 in Pirates and Mets for the first 5 innings with these 2 starting pitchers on the mound. Just generally think that total is a tad low if you're getting it around minus 110. Projected that closer to 5 with Hauser and Perez on the mound. So those are my final 2 plays.
The 2 I'm keeping an eye on, Cardinals over 7.5, Royals over 8.5. I need to dig deeper into those. Do you have anything on those games, BJ, in terms of total?
I don't. No.
Cardinals, Royals? Okay. Yep. Those are like the last 2 ads I might make. So keep an eye out for those. Not sure if I'm going to add either, but need to investigate further on whether.
Okay. Good.
Maestrini making his major league debut for the White Sox today. Don't know much about him.
No. He should get lit up, and the Royals offense has been really good, but we will see.
The worst record.
Sorry to interrupt, Brendan. It's just tough to bet these White Sox overs. Like every day they almost show value because their bullpen and their starting pitching is so bad. But I'm like, are the White Sox going to contribute at all to getting that game over?
266 weighted on base average for the White Sox.
Their offense is anemic. It's really tough to watch. I said last week I would take the Orioles AAA offense over them, like just straight up. Just trade all the Orioles minor leaguers to the White Sox, trade all the White Sox, and they would score more runs. They absolutely would. I don't even think it's a debate at this point.
White Sox are definitely the favorites for worst record now.
I was just going to go there. Is there still value? White Sox plus 240, worst record in baseball. I mean, you're not getting the number you could have had preseason.
There might be with Moncada and Robert now hurt. Like,
might be.
They know neither of those guys are incentivized to rush back. I'm sure they both can't wait to get out of there.
Yeah.
Somebody said the 4.5 WAR season for Yohan Moncada in Tampa next year is really going to hit hard. So looking forward to seeing where he ends up and how he blossoms once he finally leaves Chicago.
Rockies plus 220, White Sox plus 240, A's plus 250. Those are your
the Rockies have shown some life offensively too.
Yeah,
they actually show something. They have something. White Sox worst record. There you go. That's the parting gift for everybody. White Sox worst record.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that was playable at that price.
Yeah, it's not like it's not a great number. But if I'm picking amongst those 3 teams, it's easily the White Sox. So Maybe it is. I don't know.
All right. Very good. Some White Sox bashing on the way out.
Yeah,
Sorry, Colin
guys.
Whitchurch. Yeah. Okay. Don't forget to find Zerillo and BJ in the free award-winning Action Network app. If those guys add anything else to this big Monday slate, please leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen. Subscribe to the Action Network YouTube channel if you are watching us there. Also, check out the Action Network Discord. Some of our contributors are in there during the day, into the evening, during the slates. Sean Kerner's been giving out K-props in there. That's a lot of fun. If you haven't joined that, check it out in the episode description as well. Action Network Discord. We are back here tomorrow morning for Sean Zerillo, BJ Cunningham, Brendan Glasheen. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. See you next time. Best of luck, and thanks for tuning in.